Stafford, end zone, Cup. He's got it. Touchdown, Rams. He'll toss back to Stafford, and now a throw to Blanton, the tight end. A lot of room. Down inside the 20. Third down and 1. Stafford, end zone, Cup. Got it. Touchdown, Rams. Stafford throws, pass caught. Cup still rumbling. Cup down to the 12. Garoppolo under pressure. Donald got there in the air, intercepted by the Rams, and they may ride to the Super Bowl on that.
Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of East Coast Rams. And me and Zach, we had to go live and react to the Rams going to the Super Bowl, beating the 49ers 20-17. Zach, it seems like all the talk of 6-0 and 49ers going to take over, and we heard like 20 times during the game about how many 49er fans were in SoFi, and it was 50-50. Not great, but the Rams, even regardless of all those hurdles, they pull off the win, and they are going to play the Bengals in 2 weeks. What are your initial reactions, Zach?
Firstly, I just want to say, whose house? Really. We've, like you said, we've been hearing this all the time where the Rams are 0-6 when it comes to the 49ers. You know, they're in Sean McVay's head. They have our number, things like that. And, and then hearing from all the Rams or all the 49ers fans and, players on team saying, we're going to fill that stadium. That stadium's our second home. They get to play basically, 4 home games a year. Like I was tired of that. And, I'm just glad for this team. I'm so excited. I'm so pumped up. It was a nervous game. I'm not going to lie. I was ups and downs this whole entire time, but this win for this team is just awesome. And it's just a great feeling to see all that hard work, see all the trades, see everything that's happening, come to this moment, and for them to succeed and get to the Super Bowl is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about this game too, Zach, is every one of those guys they traded for was a part of the reason they won this game. Von Miller had some big plays. You had OBJ, big catches, over 100 yards, I believe. And we'll look through the stats here in a few minutes. And then Stafford was great this game, especially in the second half, and even more in the fourth quarter, just coming up clutch. That TD or that interception was not his fault at all. He was throwing dimes all night. Just what more can we say than the fact that all the people who were complaining and whining about the Rams being all in, that it wasn't going to work, guess what? It's a different way to look at the NFL and a different way to operate as a GM. And all credit to Les Snead. I feel like besides like contract management, he's been great with everything else, and just learning a different model and being so bold enough to perform and execute on it and getting these players. Those players we traded for, we are not in the Super Bowl without them. If we don't get OBJ, not in the Super Bowl. If we don't get Von Miller, I don't think we're in the Super Bowl right now. It's just fantastic work by Les Snead. Zach, like, just all their emotions to you. Who deserves the most credit for this team?
To me, it's Matthew Stafford. Just look at that. This was his 1-year anniversary from when the announcement was made that this trade was happening. 1 year ago today, this was the thing. We were shaking up the team. We were taking out the quarterback and bringing someone new. And to see him hold the pressure that he's had for these last almost 13 years, he had so much pressure on his back. He's been to the playoffs prior to this run 3 times, never won one of those playoff runs. He was on a team that just never went anywhere. And to come into this system 1 year, with a completely new offense, new coach, new weapons, new defense to play with. This team has really rallied behind the leaders of this team. But I think Matthew Stafford had the most weight on his shoulders, and I think he proved to everyone. Yes, he had that one interception. He had a couple sacks, which I think, over the last few weeks, we have praised him for taking sacks instead of being risky with the ball. But to me, Matthew Stafford definitely had the most pressure, who succeeded themselves.
hmm And let's be honest, the first half of this game, the Rams were relatively the better team, and they just shot themselves in the foot. And again, this is a recurring theme with this Rams team, is the only team that has stopped them, at least in the second half of the season, has been themselves. I mean, just constantly shooting themselves in the foot. It didn't help. The refs were really, really weird this game. There was a lot of like just missed personal fouls, and then you have the fourth down, which I don't know if you saw it, Zach, but Stafford gets his face mask pulled, and that's the reason he doesn't get the first.
Hmm.
And I was so angry. I was just yelling because, like, of course, we get a QB sneak, and the only reason it stopped is because his face mask gets pulled from underneath, and we don't get that call. And then, like, a few plays later, they get a really, really soft PI call against us. I'm like, I don't get how that's gonna go that way. It just the refing needs to get better in the NFL, and they need to at least get consistent. That's my issue. If you're gonna call like no tackles, or if you're gonna call like no roughing the passer calls, then be consistent. Or if you're not gonna call PI for like very soft, or like a wide receiver running into his cornerback and just going to the left, if you're not going to call that, then do that for both teams. Don't
Hmm.
like make it halfsies or random, just depending on who's doing it. And I feel like sometimes it just feels random, or if not, like leaning towards one team. In the 49ers, I mean, they will rest on that drop pick, but like we had 3 drop picks and 2 drop touchdowns. Like, how's that an excuse for you guys?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I did see a lot of the refs missing big things, um, and yeah, I do think they need to get things cleaned up for sure.
hmm but let's kind of go ahead and start breaking down the game a little bit. So, just in general, from the start, the Rams end up going 3 and out on their first drive, and we lost the coin toss, which, how lucky are the 49ers to win 4 out of 4 coin tosses against us?
Yeah, yeah, it just almost seemed bad luck just to start from the start.
hmm Yeah, and if people don't know, we were undefeated when winning the coin toss, and I think we were like 4-5 when losing the coin toss. Uh, so it just not good from the onset. Not getting it. It's not an excuse. It's just one of those things that I feel like we're better because we're a second half team. And when we get the ball to start out in the second half, I feel like we can set the tone a lot more. So we end up going 3 and out. The 49ers have a 3 and out, only 3 yards. Great stop by defense. You're feeling good, and you feel even better because the Rams come right afterwards with a 10-play, 64-yard drive. Zach, I was almost certain we were going to score on this
Hmm.
somehow. And then on, I believe it was third down, Stafford throws to the left, and Cooper Cup barely doesn't get enough separation. It would have been a very contested catch. It tips, and of course, the 49ers safeties right there to pick up the tip. Just bad luck for the Rams there. Bad luck for Stafford. Not really on him. It, I mean, he could have thrown a better ball or thrown it away. Either way, really, I don't see a huge error there by Stafford. Any like comments on the interception or anything different you think they could have done there? Because the 49ers were really good against up the gut runs. I do like how we try to stick to it every so often. It was way more done better than like week 18, where we just kept on running ball up the field. or up the gut no matter what. So, what do you think we should have done there?
Yeah, it's always in Coop we trust. It's Cooper has the ball. He usually catches it, and it was a good play. Slightly poorly executed, but it was just unfortunate. We thought in this game, as long as Stafford didn't turn the ball over more than once, we were going to be good, and that turned out to be right. So I mean, kind of was in panic mode at that start just because 0-0, we're driving the ball down pretty well, and then all look, we got an interception, and it's the first one in the postseason. So we've gone 2 games without an interception. So again, when we're facing a team that seems like it's had our quote unquote had our number, things like that, and you get that first interception, I think as a Rams fan, uh, your stock and and success and how successful we're going to be during this game went down a bit.
Hmm.
But I definitely think that once we realized that once the 49ers didn't do anything with that turnover, and the momentum came back to us, I think we did a good job of executing um, from that interception.
Yeah, but that's something we saw kind of late in the season was Stafford will throw a pick and then like we end up getting stuck in our red zone because we threw out the other team, and that's when we've gotten in very very big trouble, right? Stafford has thrown pick sixes because we're on the 3 yard line going in shotgun, and I just loved how we didn't really try to do that. We ended up going 97 yards down and cap it off with a touchdown. And this is kind of the type of drive that you have to be able to do against the 49ers, and you have to get the 49ers in situations where they're passing long downs because they're just not built to do anything other than do like hard nose running, like a lot of side to side stuff, and quick slants. Like if you make them do other stuff, Jimmy G just has shown like 90% time he isn't able to do it. And the only few games he has been able to do it have been ironically against us. So, it was just really nice to see a 18 play, 97-yard touchdown drive. That was very, very efficient. And that's something that the Rams needed to do. Uh, and then the defense. Oh, Zach, the defense right after that got roasted and toasted and terrible tackling. Uh, they end up throwing a fast or quick pass to Debo Samuel. Reader misses, or I think he actually makes the tackle in the first one, and then you get a deep pass to Ayuk. Ayuk seems to be really good against us. He's a very solid wide receiver. They get a false start. Elijah Mitchell only gets 3 yards, and then they throw a very simple screen pass. And man, Zach, that screen pass showed some of the worst tackling I've seen by our defense all year.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really I was happy with our defense in the first quarter, not so much in the second and third quarter. They just, I mean, it's just been so weird again, it's just this weird thing against the 49ers where it just seemed like we couldn't get pressure anywhere. Our front four just could not get to Jimmy G to save their lives. And they were just allowing them to do these short passes, and then eventually occasionally Jimmy G would throw a long one, but it was just bizarre, and I'm not really sure what was going on. Troy Reader definitely did not have really a great really a great game, but really the defense in general just didn't seem to be playing at their best.
Hmm. Yeah, and we give praise when it's due. Reader has had a really good 2 weeks up to this point, but you remember me when we were previewing this game. I said that it really worried me having Reader because his tackling has just been very questionable. And against someone like Debo Samuel, you have to make that first tackle, because if you don't, he will go for 20 yards.
Oh, for sure. And just looking at the stats, Eric Weddle had the most tackles in this game, which Troy Reader was second with 8, but still, it
Eric
just seems.
Weddle, coming out of retirement, Zach, should not have more tackles than you, a middle linebacker.
No, not at all. And just seeing like it just seemed like the middle of the field needed a little bit of extra help. And I think when they started putting Weddle more into the second half, that really helped our chances, especially with the tackling. I think that's the one thing that Eric Weddle does bring to this team. Coming from out of retirement, is his ability to tackle and to get to the ball as quickly as possible.
Yeah, to be honest, Zach, I really think they should at some point try to put Taylor Rapp in there instead of Reader. I know, I think Taylor Rapp, he was activated, right, for this
He
game?
was not activated.
He wasn't activated?
Nope.
Uh,
Yeah,
I
so he was
mean,
inactive. So,
yeah.
we still were, we still had, we were kind of, I wouldn't say stuck, because I think Troy Reader's actually done a pretty good job being the signal caller, and that's the problem I think that we were facing when Rap was coming back, was like, so who was going to be the signal caller at that point? We were going to rely on Rap to be the signal caller, or we were going to, leave Troy Reader in there, and so that's really the concern that came down coming into this game, was who still was going to be the green dot. And for me personally, I was still going to give it to Troy Reader, just because of the successfulness that the defense have had over the last 2 weeks.
Mhm. Well, so basically, Debo Samuel off of a screen goes for a touchdown, and you're like thinking, well, this is a game, a really, really game, and the Rams, I mean, look generally better. They end up going down the yard, 41, 41 yards, 12 plays, just really good, like taking what the defense gives them, and Matt Gay misses a field goal. Uh, Gosh, Mackey has
And really,
struggled.
really didn't. It almost looked like he barely got the extra point on the first touchdown.
Yeah. Um, Struggling a little bit. Uh,
It was a 54, so it was, you know, probably, statistically longer than, his normal kicks. I know he can do 54 and, in those that range, but it was a longer kick, but still it was far to the, I think when I was far to the right.
yeah, that's one of those ones that you expect a Pro Bowl kicker to make 90% of the time, and I just felt like one miss in the last two games I'm not concerned about, but two is starting to worry me. You got to get those points in a Super Bowl if you want to try to win them. If we would have had those points at the end of this game, it would have made life a lot easier for the Rams. But ultimately the miss didn't affect anything. The 49ers get the last drive. They end up going 36 yards, kicking a field goal right before half. We are down 10-7. The 49ers shouldn't have been up. Given with like how the stats were, possession of time, yards, everything was in the Rams' favor, and somehow like we just didn't we just weren't executing correctly.
Yeah, we just couldn't finish things off. And like you said, we had the one drive all the way down, into the red zone, and we get picked off. Then we take the ball and we get it all the way down, and we miss a field goal. Which, right before that, we missed, the missed Skoranek catch, which I thought it was a beautiful ball. It kind of looked like Skoranek was like trying to catch it from behind him, which is kind of weird, but again, whoever you want to blame on that one, but at least 10 to
That's
14
all
points.
on Skoranek. You're wide open. You're like straight, like straight, just naked in the end zone by yourself having a party. He had the time to sit down, boil some coffee, Zach, and just take his time and get that ball. And he just drops it. Like, you can't do that in a conference championship. I
Mhm.
mean, we saw players. that rose to the challenge like Kendall Blanton. Great game by Blanton. I can't speak highly enough of him. After Higby goes out, he played his tail off. And like Skoranek, I like I think he's been terrible for the most part in special teams, especially with penalties. But playing, I see why they like him. He gets open. He's a decent route runner. But he made a rookie mistake. He just wasn't able to get his eyes on the ball. He couldn't track it correctly, and you got to be able to make that play, especially when you don't have any like safety or cornerbacks on you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not really much more that I can say about that. I mean, I agree. He's had some good calls. In one of the last two games, he was able to, get the ball within the, the 2 yard line. But then at the same time, he missed one of them at the same at a different game. I think it was actually at Tampa's game. So he's very hit or miss. I do think he has this aggression towards to him that makes him really good, and I think that he can be a good player. We just need to find that role for him. And I thought special teams was where he was going to shine a little bit more, but when Van Jefferson, came out once or twice in the game, I feel like we just kept losing people, and then all of a sudden they showed up again. With Cam Akers going out with a shoulder injury, we lost Higby with a knee injury who never came back, but and then also Van Jefferson also came out with I think a knee injury as well, but eventually made his way back in.
So the 49ers get the ball to start the second quarter. They have 6 plays, 40 yards, but they end up punting. Really, a big thing about the defense is being able to make some of these stops in midfield. It really, really helped us out this game, not giving up Robbie Gold field goals,
Mhm.
because if we give up like 20 or 30 more yards in two different drives, we're not winning this game because we missed that field goal. So that is very critical. And this
Yeah.
is and then what were you gonna say, Zach?
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think there was a chance where he could have even kicked a 56-yard field goal, and they decided to punt it anyway. So, just interesting to note that as well.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan was very conservative, and he blew another lead. Like, this is I think now the third big playoff game the 49ers are second with the 49ers, third if you count the Falcons, where he blew a multi like point uh lead at that end because he got very conservative. They end up punting it, and this is a drive that had me livid. I was just furious because don't get me wrong, Sean McVay running in that circumstance, 3rd and 1, I didn't agree with it. The QB sneak was a good call, and it got the first down. It got a face mask, and I will say that again. The fact that was missed, and it was the reason he didn't, and they didn't even call it on replay because they can call it in replay. Uh, it just Zach, that to me, I thought that killed the momentum for us, and I honestly thought that could have probably costed us the game.
Yeah, yeah, and even Sean McVay also was doing so weird about calling his timeouts. I know one of them I think saved us from a delay of game, but he challenged two calls, which I you know would have been very close, or it was very hard to overturn, even if they thought was a
Was
chance. So
was that wasted timeout the first one? It wasn't that like a play before the Ben Skoranek deep bomb. I swear that was that drive. We don't exactly know because we're just filming this or recording this right after. But either way, like you're right. He was very weird with timeouts. Um,
I mean, we
I
went into the fourth quarter with no timeouts, I think.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I don't fault him for challenging those plays when he did. I thought it was a fumble in live action. I did. I didn't see the replay, and I'm surprised he didn't wait a few seconds for the replay the play like on the big board and let the people up in the booth kind of like coach them and tell them like, yeah, you should challenge that. It looks like a fumble. In live action, I really thought it was honestly a fumble. It clearly wasn't, but yeah, just I don't fault him for losing both those challenges, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I just thought in a game against against the 49ers, I just felt like some of those calls, especially going into the third and fourth, that challenge, I get it. I mean, I get it. You don't want to obviously turn the ball over on downs. Um, so I get why you're trying to challenge that call. But again, I mean, it took you down from, I think, from two timeouts to one timeout. So it just really limited you what you could potentially do in the future for something that, was going to be hard to overcome as it was. So,
hmm So we end up not converting because the refs decided not to call the face mask. I will be salty about that, even though we won. uh, the 49ers end up putting together what I thought was their backbreaker drive, right? They end up going 10 plays for 58 yards, and they score on a wide open George Kittle. To be honest, at this point, Zach, I thought we had lost the game. It looked relatively easy from them. Our defense was reeling. We had just got kind of screwed over by the refs not calling that on a solid drive, and we just look like you said we couldn't get any pressure on Jimmy G, any pressure because he was doing quick slants. They were playing their game. They were running inside out, just spamming Debo like a Madden player, like a madman. That's all I think is when I see Debo get the ball like 20 times, I'm like, oh, it's like they're playing Madden. They're just like focusing on one good player. I mean, credit to them that you need to do that when you don't have a lot of tools to work with on offense, which 49ers are a little limited on offense.
mhm.
Uh, but rough drive there. Rough drive there, Zach.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Kittle was wide open. I'm not really sure how you leave him wide open as he did. It looked like the safety didn't, keep up with him. He was trying to let a cornerback handle him when he had his own man to cover. So, not really
Yeah,
sure
they
what
put
the
Weddle on George Kittle, which for the Lord of me, why are you putting on a guy who was retired for 2 years on George Kittle?
right, you know, one of the top two tight end players in the league. So, yeah, it was kind of baffling, but they moved on and they got touchdown, and then we come back into the fourth quarter and we just we sealed the deal. We made the comeback, and that's when the stadium really really just got loud on behalf of the Rams and really decided on whose house this really was.
hmm So the 49ers get touchdown, and the Rams put together a really, really big money drive when they had to get it. Anything but a touchdown here, I feel like you just kind of give and I almost felt like if we don't get touchdown this drive, the momentum just goes out of control, right? Because the 49ers can just run down the clock, get a field goal for a two score lead, and the game's almost over. So you have to go down and try to retake control of momentum. And that's what they do. They get a 7 play, 75-yard like dot to Cooper Cup from Matt Stafford for Cooper Cup's second touchdown of the game.
Yeah, and again, you earlier asked me, whose shoulders did I think this fell on? I did think it fell on Matthew Stafford's hands, but this again, it's the Cooper Cup show. When you come down to it, it's when you just feel like you don't have a person to throw to. Cooper Cup is going to find that way out and find that way to make those big plays. And once again, he came in and got a second touchdown of the game. And I think that's really when the momentum flipped, and the fans were like, "All right, you know." Cups in. Now it's time for the defense to make the stand, and you can keep on going, and but we'll see that over and over again where the defense made their stand and really put the pressure on the 49ers.
hmm So after that, the defense wakes up majorly and just causes chaos, really. 6 plays, 36 yards, really crucial stop there to get the Rams the ball back. And when they get the ball back, they have a really nice 9 play, 63-yard drive with a really it irritated me. At the end, we decided on third and short for some reason to do a screen pass to Sony Michelle. And as me and you talked about in the last few games, Zach, we do not like Sony Michelle for some reason being viewed as like a pass catching back.
Hmm.
He drops them a lot, and he doesn't seem explosive in the open field. Uh, he
Yeah, I
just
mean he's he's
rarely
he's he's really good as a a pass blocker, and I think that's why we saw him in quite a bit as trying to be the pass blocker for Stafford to give him a little bit more time. And he's a good person to get in there to get some really good tough runs. Especially if Akers needs a break, and especially when he was out with his shoulder injury. So. Sonny Michelle, he really works hard and he really gets that in there. No, I think we're both in agreement. He's never been that pass person unless it's something where, it's that emergency
wide
safety
open.
blanket or yeah, and he's wide open. Um, so yeah, this wasn't the best Sony Michelle performance that he had, but at the same time, Cam Akers is back, and so all the weight hasn't been on his shoulders as it has been prior.
Yeah, I would have preferred like Kendall Blanton catch that if you're gonna do screen.
Yeah, no, and we didn't even talk about the awesome, um, the flea flicker back to the quarterback from was it Cam or
Tight
was
end screen.
what? But did it hand off? Was it a
Uh,
handoff to Cam and then it went back to? I don't remember if it was
I
Cam or if it
believe
was
it
to
was to
Michelle.
a wide receiver. I think it was the Van
Oh,
Jefferson.
okay. And then the flip back and then the toss to Bland. I thought that was awesome.
I loved it. And I remember I was like, "Oh, we're gonna do a flicker soon," and I just knew we were gonna do something like that. I This game had the feeling where you have a defense very aggressive, and you can take advantage of that with stuff like flea flickers and screens. Which that was a big complaint by you and me, Zach. Was in the week 18 game, we had a lack of creativity in the run game. We didn't have screens. We didn't have um quick passes. It's just like we existed and lived off of kind of like the intermediate throw. This was a far better game plan, and I love to see these long, nice drives with these 7, 8 yard passes that the 49ers were just giving up willingly and just being able to execute on them for the most part. Outside, like, again, we shut ourselves in the foot. We had 3 missed picks and 2 missed touchdowns in this game. And that was almost the difference. But I'm happy and proud of this team for not letting those mistakes kind of um, display and make them who they are. Instead, they rallied together to get the win.
Yeah.
So the Rams go down 63 yards. They don't get that first down. They kick the field goal. And then what what a great 3 and out just to see 3 plays, -5 yards. At that point, you felt like the Rams had full momentum. We end up getting the ball back, having 10 plays, 49 yards to kick another field goal, and Matt Gay just nails it. And you just see a dot from Stafford the Cup, and that felt like a backbreaker that the 49ers just kept on missing on.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just it's again it's so hard to cover Cup. I mean, every week you go into this game and you're like, all right, the game plan is to cover Cup. We can't let him get we can't let him get any point or we can't get him any yards, and yet he still finds those ways to get them. So again, just miraculous, just
He's
miraculous.
like a QB who can who's running the routes. Like, he can read your coverage as he's running his routes. That is so powerful, and people don't understand. You don't have to be fast. You don't have to be. He is faster than people think. He is more nimble than people think. But in general, if you can read the routes and you know what people are doing, they're like sitting on a hook route, and you can just do quick slant to the right instead. Like, that is so powerful stuff. And my wife was telling me a few minutes ago, she was laughing, she's like, I remembered in the Ravens game when Ravens fans were like, how do you let Cooper Cup be that wide open? uh it's because he is that smart. He can get, if you're playing zone, he can get anywhere in those zone holes. And he has really been so good, and he deserves the credit. Honestly, everyone knows he should win MVP. The way he's playing, he should be the MVP of the league this year. And I think it's stupid that we stop MVP voting after the most critical point in the season just starts. Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. You're gonna have Aaron Rodgers probably win MVP when he didn't even win in the playoffs. Then he threw one touchdown in playoffs, and then you have Matthew Stafford not make the Pro Bowl, and he's only thrown one pick and multiple touchdowns in the playoffs and is in the Super Bowl. And Cooper Cup got over 2,000 yards. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah, no, I'm full Cooper Cup. I have my jersey still on from the game. Again, I've been screaming his name. He should be MVP candidate for a long time now, and or been top two, not just top four. And what he's done this postseason, I mean, he's still breaking records. The first player to hit over 2,000 yards in a season. Unbelievable. It doesn't matter if it's postseason or not. If it's postseason, it just keeps on going up. I mean, I'm sorry that if we're trying to be fair and saying we're cutting off at the regular season, he's able to go farther beyond than what everybody else can do. Isn't that what the MVP is supposed to be? Someone who goes out far and beyond their duties, and it's crazy to me. It's crazy
The
to me.
Rams make the playoffs so Cooper Cup isn't on this team, but they are not going to the Super Bowl without him. And
Oh,
they would have lost probably 4 games. They would have been like 10-7 without Cup.
and
And
we can look back and look at the Super Bowl where we didn't have Cup, and that team would have been different. That team would have had more than 3 points if Cooper Cup was on that team, because we knew back then how special he was and how much a detriment it was that we lost him. I mean, that's where he became third in Cup. I mean, it was always the safety blanket, and so again, he's coming back in here and he's doing better. He's doing more than what he did even in that season. And again, it's crazy that he's still getting underrated by not by the league, because I think the league really knows. I mean, he's the Triple Crown winner, things like that. But when it comes to thinking who's going to be the next goat, I mean he's the goat of wide receivers. I mean,
if he doesn't at least get offensive player of the year, we're gonna get ready for a 30-minute rant by me on that podcast. Just get ready. I'll be so irritated.
it'll be an
Uh,
hour podcast because you got the first 30 minutes, and I'm gonna take the second 30 minutes.
yeah. And so after Matt Gay kicks that field goal in crunch time, you have, I think, 65 yards or 75 yards for Jimmy G to come out. And I remember in week 18, same situation, but he had to get a touchdown, tie the game. They go down and get a touchdown in that game. In this game, 3 plays, -3 yards. And then Aaron Donald, uh, he pointed, like, I think a few plays beforehand, that he was going for that ring. And guess what, Zach? He is going for that ring because he ends up causing the interception that's caught by Howard. Oh man, I I yelled. I'm sorry to my neighbors. I really am, but I yelled so loud, and I was so happy. We had to hear about the stupid streak and about how they the 49er fans were going to take over SoFi, and how like they talked about it so much in the game. It's like you're beating a dead horse. Like,
Mhm.
we understand the Rams had to be on silent count. It wasn't a great look, but it was still 50-50. It wasn't like week 18.
and
Um
and I think that, and I want to give out some congratulatory things for the people who made this happen. I mean, we looked at Rams Twitter and we saw so many fans get the chance to go to this game on behalf of Kelly Stafford, and the Rams organization. I saw JB Long throwing out tickets. Even the Rams fans were setting up GoFundMe accounts and connecting fans with other Rams fans so that we could get people into this stadium, so that you know we weren't going to have that sea of red that we had in 18. And I think LA showed up. It showed up loud, especially in the 3-and-out with -5 yards, and then again on the 3 plus the interception. That stadium was loud. It was messing with Jimmy G because he wasn't expecting that to happen. I think they were coming in thinking that they were going to own this place, and they realized, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore.
yeah, they got more false starts than we did. So,
Yeah, I mean, the Rams for the most part played a pretty clean game. I think Greg Gaines, you know, especially on the defense, went out and um, did a false start or
yeah,
neutral zone infraction.
neutral
But
zone. Yeah, do you want to talk about that hit by w- was it Fred Warner on Stafford, in the fact that that wasn't a flag?
yeah, I don't really understand how that wasn't called. Like, I think they were, um, that was the interception, wasn't it, or was that after the interception? Which Because there was one, I
Uh
think during the interception after the play, like one of the players came up and like smashed him in the head.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that was
that
post
was
the
a
play.
that was a Fred Warner, right after the pick. He like I don't know if the Rams would have got it back, but the 49ers would have been like on their 1 yard line.
Hmm. Yeah. So
And
so
that's
remind me of which one
ridiculous.
you're talking about.
Where Fred Warner comes up to Stafford and just like headbutts him after I believe it's right after the pick.
Okay.
Does helmet to helmet headbutts him from the back of the head.
Well, I think that's ridiculous. And again, I don't know why these things are being flagged. And I guess it's great that they find them after the fact, but it's it's not in the game. It's not when it could potentially matter. Things like that. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, this game had so much layers to it. It was a typical Rams 49ers game, especially like the last six, where it just felt like it doesn't matter how good we are in comparison to them. We just can't execute normal things we're used to executing, right? It
Yeah.
it's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at, I'm going to go into the stats real quick, just with a few comparisons. You had Cooper Cup, who had 11 catches, 142 yards, averaging 12.9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. And we had Odell Beckham Jr. with 9 carries, 113 yards. Um, and we had these players that were making it, and it was only a 20-17 game. When you look on the opposite end, when Debo Samuel, he had four receptions, 72 yards, averaging 18 yards. You had Ayuk with receiving yard or 4 receptions, 69 yards. Like, they weren't really doing it. It didn't seem like they were doing anything on the offense. I mean, they had 50 rushing yards total, compared to, and then on the receiving end, we had 232. On our side, we had at least 70 rushing yards, and then we had a total of 137 receiving yards. At one point in time, it looked like Matthew Stafford was really, especially in the like beginning of the third quarter, midway through the third quarter, where his stats were down. I mean, he was looking at like somewhere between like a 75 and an 85 rating. But then when it came down to this is the games that he lived for, these fourth quarter matchups. And he ended up with 31 31 completions for 45 attempts, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had that 1 interception, and then he also had 2 sacks. Compared to Jimmy
Mm.
Garoppolo, 16 for 30, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So it kind of
Yeah,
came close.
really, and like you said, really great sacks too. Like I know some people don't like to say a sack's great, but we have seen Stafford in games where he's trying to play hero ball when you got to be able to trust your defense. This team is good enough. Our defense will get stops.
For
Our
sure, for sure. I mean, if you
Yeah,
look at the Jimmy G, if Jimmy G just would have taken the sack, you know,
you get a
they would have.
shot.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he would have got a sack instead. A lot of times these sacks, if they didn't get a sack, most of the time, they're like when it should have been a sack, they're throwing it. They're trying to throw it away, and it gets intercepted. So, I'm happy for Stafford. Taking 2 sacks and losing 11 yards is way better than having 2 more interceptions because that could have put you in an even worse place.
Yeah, it costed them the game by their QB not making smart decisions. Yeah, you would have been in a bad situation, but the Rams had them where they wanted them. They were doing drop back passing in order to win the game. And, Von Miller and AD, they were not having any of it. I think AD eventually got tired of this 49ers team just constantly talking crap. And guess what? Hey, I'll take this one win over those six.
For sure, for sure. This was a great win. It was a great team win. Everyone stepped up and played their best, especially when it mattered at the end. And I'm so excited that we get to continue this ride all the way to the Super Bowl. We got 2 more weeks before we get to see them play in all glory and see who comes out on top. But I'm so excited. I think we decided that we're gonna at least try to do 2 more at least. Depending on how our schedules work before the game starts. So I'm really looking forward to it. But why don't we do just a quick thing? What are your thoughts? They're going against the Bengals. They were the 4th seed in the AFC. Do you have any specific thoughts before? I know we'll do a preview game, but any thoughts about their outcome of their game against Kansas City, or initial thoughts about them being our opponent?
Um, I'll say this. I at least think in the last 7 weeks, the Rams have been the most balanced team on both sides of the ball out of any team going into the playoffs, maybe outside of Tampa Bay. Just our defensive line has been stellar, and our secondary has had some weaknesses. Darius Williams, for example, was struggling out there in this game, especially in the first half. Um, but for the most part, our defensive line is so great, it hides that completely, especially when they get in that zone like they did in the last 2 minutes of this game. And this Bengals team, they allowed 9 sacks against Titans. They will not beat us with our offense if they get 9 sacks. I would be, if you say the Rams get 9 sacks in the Super Bowl, I would be very surprised if we somehow lose that game.
Yeah, just looking at the team. So, to give some background to everyone who does listen, I'm from Cincinnati. My whole family's Bengals fans. You would think that I would have embraced the Bengals, but I did not. I chose the Rams on my own fruition. And so, I know this Bengals team very well, just from my family and things like that. So I know what this team can be, and they do have the weapons. Burrow is an amazing quarterback. You have Joe Mixon, who's a great running back. You have Jamar Chase. You have Tyler Boyd. You have all these. They have weapons too. But and so I'm really excited to see what this is. This is going to be some smack talk between me and my family for the next 2 weeks. And, honestly, I'm kind of nervous about this game just because, did I choose the right team, or, those types of things are going to come up in the next 2 weeks, but it's going to be fun. It's a game where I'm super excited about. It's something where, my whole family can kind of get on board with, and, whether the Bengals win or the Rams win, which, I think whatever the outcome is, it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be great. The one thing that I think that the I think the Rams do have a better defense, especially the front four, like you mentioned. Getting to the quarterback is going to be extremely important, and just making sure that we tighten up our bolts as far as turning over the ball, keeping possession of the ball, things like that. So I'm looking really forward to breaking this down with you. Moving on over the next couple weeks, and really identifying where this Rams team is and where it can be in the Super Bowl in their home stadium, which is it's just going to be another unbelievable event for this Rams team and to continue.
Yeah, man. No matter what, I definitely don't think you picked wrong. This team has fought through adversity. Um, we thought we were in big trouble after that 3-game skid, and then and I think it was the best for the team. It really pulled the team together. You saw us win in any type of way. Stafford had his struggles, but again, like that was a learning experience for the team. I think Stafford really started to trust the rest of the team the way like we started winning games, and now that Stafford has turned it up to a different level, a level that everyone in the national media said he didn't have, and so many people were bringing up 0-3, 0-3 in the playoffs. He can't be clutch. Like, you were wrong. You're wrong. He
Yep.
is 3-0 now with the Rams and going to the Super Bowl. And win or lose, that is such an accomplishment for the first time in the system. Uh, Sean McVay, 2 Super Bowls in 5 years, 4 playoff appearances, 6 playoff wins. That is, uh, it's man. We are so lucky to have Sean McVay, and when he starts getting a little bit more wiser and starts like getting a little bit, let's say, less conservative in certain situations, the league better look out. Like, we're going to be a dangerous team for a long time, and we don't need first round picks to do it.
No, you're spot on. I agree. I started becoming a Rams fan when it was the greatest show on turf. I know that's kind of cliche to kind of get your back on it, but I've been through the bad times and through the 17-year drought that we had, and this team is just everything. I mean, it has the weapons, it has the heart, it has the star power, it has its story, and the story's not over. It's making its way to the final, and it's going to be great. It's going to be Whitworth facing his old team. It's Sean McVay facing his old quarterback coach. It's going to be a game that I think it's going to live on. And this is the Rams team, and they've put so much work into it, and they've gone through so much adversity. And most teams would falter under this. They would lose, one of their top running backs. They would lose Cam Akers to the
Starting tight
Achilles
end.
heel. Now, I mean, their tight end is currently banged up. It's
COVID outbreaks.
right. COVID outbreaks and swapping in teammates. Ramsey being told 4 hours before kickoff that you can't play, and
Losing
um,
Woods.
yeah, I mean, it's it's crazy what this team has gone through, and yet they've come through it all. And they're going to be facing up against the Bengals, who are going to be considered the underdogs in this. A Cinderella story for the making, but this Rams team has so much heart and so much passion and so much strength that I find it hard to see that this isn't going to be a win for them coming down. But we can break it all down um,
Mhm.
here in the next couple weeks. Got anything else you want to add in?
We are in the Super Bowl, Zach, and that means more podcast this month. And oh, I'm gonna be excited. We're gonna have a lot of content, guys. Please like and share if you enjoy this podcast, and we'll try to be a little bit more scripted next time, but couldn't contain the enjoyment, man. Couldn't contain enjoyment.
For sure, for sure. So I think we're going to wrap it up for this week's episode of East Coast Rams Pod. Well, maybe not this week's episode. We may have some more for you, but stay tuned. But you can always send questions and feedback to feedback@eastcoastrams.com or hit us up on Twitter. I am at Zach Mayer, at ZACMAIER. And you can find Ashton at RamsFanAshton1. But yeah, it was great to see this win against the 49ers, and I cannot wait to continue this discussion as we head into Super Bowl week. All right. Till next time, guys. Let's go. Horns up.